Hello lovely people, how are you all doing today? I hope you're well. I am, but I'm a bit on the warm side again. We had an absolute cracking, stonking storm last night. Went on for ages. Thunder, lightning, lashing rain. We're supposed to have more of that today, but we don't. Instead, we've got a thick grey duvet over us. So muggy, so warm. I'm all restless and fidgety, sorry. Right, so today, oh my goodness, I'm kind of touching on a series that we haven't touched on for ages, and that's our low spend year. Rather than no spend, because we all have to spend something, don't we? There's always a bill to pay. So, yeah, I'm more fluster-pated. I've already had a busy morning. Anyway, as you'll see from the video. Yes, low spend year. Haven't really touched on it. Are any of you still doing it? How is it going? We mainly looked at it last year in 2022, touched on it a little bit this year in 2023. For me, it's not a challenge of, oh, I'm going to have a low spend year this year. It's every year. I'm always low spend. That's how I live. That's how I get away with it all. So, and today's subject is something that I was going to talk about back in April or May or so, because it's something that relates probably more to the summer months. Anyway, you all know now why things didn't happen according to plan in the spring and summer. So I thought we'll touch on it today because it's relevant to me right now, and it might be relevant to you in the coming weeks, or it might be relevant for next year. So the subject for today is low spend, holidays and days out. Days out for as frugal as you can possibly be. You know, I think to have a proper holiday, you know, like a 2-week holiday on a beach somewhere, undoubtedly costs a lot of money. And for me, that's now certainly way out of reach. It's just not, I don't think that's probably ever going to happen again in my life. You know, I just don't earn enough now. I enjoyed it while I had those times. But you know what, even when I was sort of in my 20s and early 30s, I managed those kind of, the typical summer holiday in Greece really quite frugally as well, because there were times when I've taken trains across Europe, I've slept on beaches, I've hung around in Greece for 5 or 6 weeks by sleeping on beaches and stuff like that. I'm not into sleeping on beaches anymore. So let's just kind of say, okay, we're not talking about that kind of, you know, the big fancy foreign holiday, and besides, we don't want to be getting on aeroplanes anymore, do we? It's not good for the planet. Where can we go by train? So this is more about, you know, maybe 2 or 3 days away in the UK, you know, fairly locally, or maybe even up to a whole week away. Yay! I haven't had a whole week off since 2017. I need to try and plan that for next year. But, you know, whether it's a day trip, whether it's 1 day off, whether it's 2 or 3 days away, there are definitely things we can do to get that kind of holiday vibe, to relax a little bit and to do it without spending too much money. There is going to be some spending. That's why it's low spend rather than no spend. And you know, I think I've probably done it in a couple of Facebook posts before now, that sometimes, you know, the old adage, a change is as good as a rest. Sometimes I take a holiday simply by having a day where, you know, when I've talked about this in the past, when I've gone up to one of the different towns a little bit further away from me, a different village within London, and, you know, I might go there for a specific reason, like I've gone to Marks and Spencer's for a refund, whatever it is. But on those kind of days of saying to myself, you know, I'm giving myself permission to have the next 4 hours where I don't think about work, I'm not trying to earn, I'm not on the lookout for, you know, any side hustles, whatever it is. I'm going to turn off for the next few hours, turn off my phone, turn off my devices. I mean, I don't have a smartphone, and I intentionally don't have a smartphone because I don't want to be attached to work by way of a phone. So yeah, just literally a day of turning off devices, you know, turning off the TV, the tablet, the computer, whatever it is, turning everything off and just going for a walk with different eyes. You know, it can be as simple as that. However, most of us want a bit more than that, don't we? So obviously I'm thinking about it at the moment because I've got my forthcoming trip to Dorset happening. So let's dive a bit deeper. Right, first things first, accommodation, where you're going to stay. Now, if you are a bit more able-bodied than me, if you're a bit fitter and healthier of limb, you could of course look at holidays where you do some volunteering in exchange for your accommodation and food. Now, it's not something I've looked into recently, but it's definitely something that used to be out there, so I think it's well worth good old Google. Get on your computer and Google volunteer holidays. I know there have been times when I've been in Dorset, and for instance, one of the places I'm going to be going, if I can manage it, it's quite a steep, narrow, twisty bit down from a high cliff down onto a beach, and it's sort of National Trust maintained property, and over the years they need to maintain, there are sort of steps cut into the cliff. It's not like concrete steps, there's no banisters, nothing fancy, but it's sort of slabs of rock, and sometimes it's kind of tree trunks which are held against the side of the cliff, and it's kind of hard to describe. But quite often, you know, I've been down there in the summer and those steps have been being repaired by volunteers, and they're staying in a hostel for free, and they're getting their basic meals for free, and then at the weekend they have a couple of days off, so they volunteer Monday to Friday and they're working on the steps or the cliff or whatever it is, and then a couple of days off at the weekend, free to, you know, just go and enjoy the sea, whether it's swimming, sailing, whatever they want to get up to. So it's hard work, and in exchange it is basic accommodation. It's usually dormitory, hostel type accommodation, and the food is usually basic but hearty. You take it in turns to cook. So if you're up for that kind of thing, that's well worth looking into. So I know that National Trust used to do that, perhaps English Heritage as well. There was a scheme with organic farms where you could go and volunteer to work on the farm in exchange for accommodation and basic food, and then you get a little bit of time off. So yeah, if you feel physically fit enough and up for it, Google volunteer holidays. And there might be some, off the top of my head I can't think of any, but there might be some of that type of volunteer holiday that are more suitable if you've got wobbly knees. Definitely worth checking out. But otherwise, if you are doing accommodation, it's kind of almost like the supermarket food swap thing, isn't it? The swapping down. If you're used to staying in hotels, maybe think about staying in a B&B. If you normally stay in B&Bs, think about maybe a room over a pub. I always used to stay in a room over a pub in Corfe Castle, lovely pub, the Banks Arms. At the back, it backs onto the steam train, so you can hear whoo whoo to wake you up in the morning. And it's not like you think, oh, a room above a pub, isn't it stinky and noisy and dirt. Okay, there may be patrons in there till 11, but at 11 o'clock the pub is shut and then it's quiet, and it can be a much cheaper way of getting accommodation than hotels and bed and breakfasts. Of course, we now have the advent of Airbnb, which is kind of the scourge of our rural homes situation, isn't it? But if there's more than one of you, a self-catering, you know, renting a cottage can work out even cheaper. If there's 4 of you, if there's 2 couples, or you know, like we did a few years ago, me, my sister, my cousin and his wife, the four of us, then that's much cheaper. And of course it's self-catering, so you're cooking all your own foods, it's cheaper than restaurants. So of course that's an option. Of course the cheapest of cheap is camping or caravanning, although these days even caravanning and camping can be a bit pricey. So yeah, just think about swapping down your accommodation. So if you've always done this, try, it's like going down the levels. And that's not to say like the room in the pub, oh, it's horrible compared with a nice swanky hotel. It's just that it possibly will be a bit more basic. But essentially when it comes to accommodation, all you want is a decent bed that you can get a decent night's sleep in, and a decent place to have a wash. That's it, isn't it? Okay, so let's say accommodation is sorted. This is the big one for me, the travel, getting there, because you all know I don't have a car, I've never had a car, I do not drive. So I'm always on public transport, and that will dictate to a degree where you go to stay. But let's say it's within the UK and we're talking about a seaside holiday or a day trip. Most of the places we want to visit, whether it's the seaside or a city, we want to go to Canterbury to see the cathedral, or we want to go to Cambridge to look at the university and the punting, or we want to go to York to see the Minster, or we want to go to Stratford to see, you know, Shakespeare land, as it were. It's not a theme park. Those places, that they're almost certainly going to have a train station. The two things are almost, it's almost a symbiotic relationship, isn't it? That a resort, a seaside resort, becomes popular, so the train line gets taken all the way there. Or because there is a train line there, the resort becomes popular because it's accessible. So yeah, I think trains are always, generally, nearly always, one of the easiest ways. Someone else is doing the driving for you. You don't have to worry about parking. You might think, yeah, but I've got all my clobber with me. That's the only thing, is you can't carry as much on your back as you could maybe in the boot of a car. But I've never had issues with what I need to take with me, of managing it all on a train, even now with my wobbly knees. So if you are using trains, my two top tips with trains, and I've used them all my life a lot. Number one, book your ticket as far in advance as you can. So most tickets in the UK generally go on sale, I think it's about 12 weeks in advance. Some of them it's 8 weeks, like the Christmas ones it might be 8 weeks, but usually 12 weeks. The difference can be huge. So as an example, because this is one I've done a lot, going up to my sister's in North Yorkshire, if I'm going up for Christmas, I'm on that ticket, like that, you know, on the ticket website at the end of September. I put it on my calendar, I put a note on my phone to remind me, by the end of September I need to be looking for tickets. And if I can squeeze in, and they go quickly, but if I can do it at the end of September, I can get a return ticket to my sister's for about £90, 90. This year I wasn't doing anything in advance. It was very much reacting to how she was doing and just going up, you know, at the drop of a hat whenever I was needed. And I was paying anything between 150 and 180 quid for a day return. So you think that's almost double the price. So yeah, if you are going to do your trip by train, so my Dorset trip, the train tickets, well, I looked at accommodation and the trains at the same time, and as soon as I could nail the accommodation, because that was a bit tricky, boom, straight on, got on with getting my train tickets booked. Yeah, so book your train tickets as early as you can, pretty much as soon as you've got your accommodation sorted, or if it's a day trip, you know, and you're not worrying about accommodation, or maybe you're going to stay with a friend while you're there, or a family member, do it in advance. Now the other big thing in the UK is travel cards, rail cards. I discovered a rail card that I had no idea existed. I discovered it in about 2015. Oh, changed my life. So, probably most of you know about the young person's rail card, and that is for people aged 16 to, I think it's like 24, 25. I had a young person's rail card. I got it free when I opened my first grown-up bank account when I was 18 years old. So I got a free young person's rail card for opening my bank account with NatWest Bank. And I always had a young person's rail card right until I wasn't a young person anymore. We have senior citizens rail cards. I don't know what all these rail cards names are specifically, but if you go onto British Transport and look up rail cards. So there's the one for older people. I think it's probably from 65 onwards. Not sure, but check it out. There's the family rail card. And the thing with all of these rail cards is, so if it's the family one, I think, one adult pays full price. A second adult, if you're that kind of family, will get a third off. And then I think the kids' tickets are cheaper. So in other words, if you're a single mum with a couple of kids, because this is what my mum did for us getting down to Dorset every summer, we had a family rail card and our tickets were cheaper. So there's the family one. I think there's another rail card that came out that's about friends. So I think up to 4 adults can travel together, and there's some discounts with that. But what if you're a solo traveller a lot of the time? Because a lot of these rail cards, they depend on you being either old or young, or part of a group or part of a family, and a lot of us travel alone. I discovered this rail card in 2015 because I was going backwards and forwards to Auntie Teapot. Oh gosh, sometimes 4 or 5 times a week. She's down in Kent. And my ticket was 30 quid a day, 30 quid return. And this is why we need people at train stations looking after the ticket booths. They're trying to shut them all down. But the woman who used to serve me my ticket every day, I don't know, I'd been doing this for about a month, and she said, why don't you have a network card? I was like, I don't even know what one is. Applied for it there and then on the spot. So these cards, you have to pay for them. I paid £30 for my network card. And from that day on, it gave me a third off all my train fares to Auntie Teapot. So over the course of the next week, so it's £10 off each ticket, 3 visits to Auntie Teapot's later that week, the card had paid for itself. And then I had a whole year of discounted travel to her. The reason I'm mentioning the network card is it's a huge area that it covers. So I know a lot of you in the UK will fall within the area. So obviously I'm based in London, I'm in the southeast. I can use it to go down to Kent. I can use it to go right down to the Sussex coast. It will take me all the way down to Dorset, so via Hampshire. It goes as far west, I think it covers Oxford. I can't remember, I'm trying to remember the map in my mind. I think going north, it covers me up to as far as about Cambridge. So it's a great chunk of the southeast of the UK. So yeah, if you're only going to make one trip and you're never going to get on a train again, they're not worth it. But if you know, for instance, you're going to see an elderly relative and you're going to be going at least 2 or 3 times in the next couple of months, do check out rail cards, because especially if you're going every week, that discount over the year, I mean, even if we said with the, I mean, I was going at least twice a week, so that's a 20 quid a week saving. That's £1,000. Is that right? 220 is 5. Yeah, it's £1,000 saving over the course of the year. And actually, I was mostly going even more than 2 times. So yeah, great saving. So check out rail cards and book early. Also, of course, there's national coaches. I don't tend to go by coach. I tend to get a bit travel sick on coaches. I find it very confining as well. I have restless legs. I can't sit still on a coach. The great thing about a train is I can get up, stretch my legs a bit, walk to the buffet car. I don't buy anything in the buffet car, I just walk there and back. Now the other thing, if you're not taking a car, once you get to your destination, so again, this is doing a bit of prep at home, doing your Googling, using local buses. So for instance, let's say, so the train station I'm going to is Wareham in Dorset. I can Google, I can do it right now, I can find out all about the buses around Dorset. That's the wonderful thing about Google. I can look to see, firstly, like, can I get a bus from the station to where I've got my accommodation? Let's say it's a village a couple of miles away. Check out your bus routes. But also get an idea for the buses in the area. So from Wareham I can think, oh, I can get a bus to Swanage, I can get a bus to Langton, my grandparents' old village, or I can get the bottom bus that goes the other way. I can get a bus to Poole, I can get a bus to Dorchester. Have a look around and think, oh, I can get buses all over the place. When I was in Alnwick, I went and stayed in Alnwick for 5 days, did all of that by buses, went all the way to Lindisfarne, Holy Island, by bus. So yeah, Google in advance, check out the routes, see that there are routes that you can use, look at times, because of course, if we're going somewhere like Dorset, if we're going anywhere rural, the chances are, especially if you've come from London, where I'm used to buses every 2 or 3 minutes, there may only be one bus an hour. You can clock that. And if you're going somewhere for a week and you think, during that week, oh, I'm going to have 2 days where I'm just going to laze about on the beach, playing in the rock pools, building sandcastles, whatever it is. But on the other 5 days, I want to be out and about exploring. I want to go to Poole. I want to go and look at Poole Harbour. I want to go over to Dorchester. I want to have some Thomas Hardy time. Go to the museum in Dorchester and they've got Thomas Hardy's study there. I want to pop to my grandparents' old village. I want another day, I want to head over towards Kimmeridge, Lulworth, that way. And if you think, oh, actually there's going to be 5 days when we're going to be whizzing around, have a look to see if that area, the local bus company in that area, do a bus rover type ticket, where you can buy a ticket for the whole week, and that ticket allows you to just hop on and off any buses, rather like the old travel cards in London. I don't know if they still do them. I haven't used a travel card in London for ages. So yeah, check to see if there's a rover ticket for the buses, because I'm willing to bet you it'll make it a lot cheaper. And also, once you've got it, especially if you're having a sort of a beachy, seaside type holiday, and it's a really lashing down rainy day, oh, what am I going to do? And you've got your rover ticket, hop on the bus and go to one of a town or city where there's likely to be things that you can entertain yourself with indoors, like a museum, for instance. So, okay, rover tickets. So check your bus routes, check your times, rover tickets, all of that before you go away. The other thing you can do is, both when you're there in person, but before you go, get in touch with the local tourist office. And again, I did this with Alnwick before I even got to Alnwick. Get in touch with the local tourist office, see if you can get even they might send you a paper copy of a bus map for the area, that sort of thing. But you can find out, are there events going on during my stay? You might actually do this. You might reverse engineer it and find out about events and plan your trip around events. But it may be that there are events which are free. There might be, if you're near the sea, there might be regattas happening. If it's the summer, there may be carnivals in various villages. So get in touch with the tourist office and find out about those events which are free, that you can watch, that you can be part of the crowd, you can join in with the the boos and the cheers, the pantomime boos, and have all that kind of fun and entertainment that's free. But also with the tourist office, they'll be able to let you know about the buses and things. But also from that area, there may be organised trips to, there may be a country house garden that you want to visit that's only accessible by car, or if you go on an organised coach, that sort of thing. To be honest with you, my attitude has always been, if I can't get there under my own steam, I'm not going to bother going, because there's usually plenty else around to keep me happy and occupied. Okay, so that's getting there, getting around once we're there, accommodation. Now, this is the big thing. This is the big money saver thing. Hang on, I need a slurp. The big expense, I think, when you're away, whether it's either day trip or holiday, food and drink. Oh my goodness, it can rack up. I hear horror stories. I heard one the other day about a can of Coke costing 10 quid. It's some hotel in Paris. I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? So this is one place where we can really trim the fat and keep our costs low. So for example, back to the accommodation thing, and when I'm in Dorset for my trip, I'm in self-catering, so I will get my own food in. And you might think, oh, but you know, it's a holiday, I don't want to cook every day, etc, etc. Completely, I hear that, I get you. I don't want to either. So you may say, well, actually what we'll do is we'll give ourselves a small allowance so that we can maybe eat out in the evening, but keep it cheap and cheerful even then. But maybe do your lunches and breakfasts, self-cater those. So if you're in self-catering, great, you can do all that, can't you? Bed and breakfast, it's a funny one. So for me, I don't really enjoy breakfast. I struggle, no, I don't like it. However, I always order my breakfast anyway, and what I do is, I don't have cereal with milk on it. What I'll do is I'll order a continental breakfast. So I may get a couple of croissants, a couple of sort of slices of cheese, a hard-boiled egg, that sort of thing, continental breakfast, brilliant. So then I come down for my breakfast in the morning. And I used to do this a lot when I was an actor, and if I was staying in accommodation in digs, quite often in a B&B. So I'd have my continental breakfast, but I wouldn't eat it at breakfast. So quite simply, croissant would arrive, I'd cut them in half, slap on a bit of butter, because croissants never have enough butter, do they? I mean, good grief. Whack in a couple of slices of cheese, thank you very much. Hard-boiled egg, thank you very much. I've got a couple of cheese sarnies and a hard-boiled egg for my lunch. Something to nibble on during the day. So yeah, if you are staying in bed and breakfast, think about ordering a breakfast where, you know, you can fill up. If you're a breakfast eater, fill yourself up, but maybe there's something else you can just put in a serviette and take out with you during the day. You know, perhaps your breakfast comes with some fruit, so don't necessarily eat the apple with your breakfast, just pop it in your bag and eat it later on. Also, pretty much anywhere where you stay, you'll either have a kettle in your room, or you can ask the landlady, fill a flask with hot water. If you're a tea drinker, fill your flask with boiling water before you leave. If you are a tea drinker, one of my tips would always be, don't make a flask of tea, as in it's had the tea bags in and the milk in, so when you pour it out it's a cup of tea. Make the flask so it's just the tea, so it's like black tea, and have a little bottle with the milk, so that flask, there's no space taken up with the milk's separate, so you'll get 3 cups of tea out of that, and also because it's just water, it'll stay hotter longer because you haven't added the milk, so you'll get 3. You'll have either 2 cups out of it that are already milk added, or 3 cups if you don't add your milk, kind of. You see what I mean, don't you? But yeah, if you're going out and about for the day, and you're a tea drinker, get your flask filled, either by your landlady or fill it from the kettle in your room. It's mad to pay for a cup of tea where I go. Look, if you've got enough money, if you've been saving and saving, going out, and this isn't about being a complete miser and just kind of sitting in some bus shelter in the pouring rain, drinking a cup of tea, going, I'm having a lovely holiday. Of course, it's not about never, ever, ever having a cup of tea in a cafe. It's not about that. It's about saying, if you're really, really broke, you can still have a day out and have fun and have enjoyment without having to spend. But if you've been saving up and you've set aside a few quid so that you can go into a cafe one afternoon and have a nice sticky bun and a cup of tea, of course, treat yourself, but arm yourself with a flask as well. So I don't drink tea, you know that. I'm a water bottle girl. And what's great, I'm going to have another slug, excuse me. What's great these days is more and more places are offering water bottle refills. As we all finally catch up with the idea that buying water in a plastic bottle and throwing the bottle away is a really rubbish idea, more places are offering to refill. So of course, before you leave your accommodation in the morning, fill it up. But also, and this is something else you can Google before you go away, loads of Googling, do your research before you go away and make a game of it, have fun with it, is, I can't remember if there's a specific name for it, but there are, if you Google, let's say we're in Bournemouth for the day, let's say we're having a day out to Bournemouth. If I Google Bournemouth water refill points, something along those lines, then that should come up with some information for me. So for instance, if you were visiting me here in my neighbourhood and Googled it, you'd find there's a water refill point just outside the railway station, just by the hill here. If you were travelling down from Yorkshire, arriving into London at King's Cross station, you'll find water refill points in King's Cross station. I know that because that's the one I use for going backwards and forwards to my sis. So check in advance. Again, it's one of those things, ask your landlady if you're staying in that kind of accommodation. If you're self-catering or if you're on a campsite, you'll have access to water on the campsite, but ask your host or ask at tourist information, can you tell me where I can refill my water bottle, please? Thank you. Now, what goes in must come out. Yes, I'm going to talk about the lavatory. It's one of my bugbears in life. I hate that feeling it's just a really insecure feeling, isn't it, of thinking, what if I need the loo? Where will I go to the loo? I hate not knowing where I'm going to be able to go to the loo. Not because I have no control over my body, certainly not, I'm a fully formed adult who controls things, but some of us actually can't, and it may be that you're a bit poorly and so you feel a little bit even more insecure, whatever it is. Look, I'm not going to go into the details. We just want to know where we can go to the loo. And over years, we saw more and more public lavatories closing down, and often they're just hideous and they're vile, aren't they? So we end up, going to a cafe and spend £4 on a glass of water or a glass of orange juice just so I can use the loo. And then, hang on a minute, I bought a glass of juice so I can use your loo. And 10 minutes later, that juice wants to come out. Oh, where's the next loo? So, check in advance. I always check in advance. And there's a fantastic thing now. Again, now I wrote this one down. This is in the UK. If you Google, so you'll need to put the town at the end, but community toilet scheme. Excuse that they use the word toiletry and not lavatory, but never mind. The community toilet scheme. So this is going on in all sorts of towns up and down the country, and I know it goes on in my little pocket of village here. So this is places that aren't actual public lavatories, but it might be somewhere like a pub or a restaurant or a cafe who are happy for people to come in off the street purely to use their lavatory, not as a customer. Because you know, it always used to be that thing of, you'd see notices on the doors, you know, toilets only for the use of patrons, and you're like, got to buy something. And like, even a half a pint of beer these days costs about £3. So even like the smallest drink you could buy in a pub costs £3. You end up spending £3 to spend a penny. So yes, check that out, the community toilet scheme, and the people who do it. So if you put in community toilet scheme and then town, York, for instance. If you're doing London, you'd have to do smaller than, no, like make it more of a smaller area, like Covent Garden, for example. Then it'll come up with a map and it'll have all the facilities, you know, marked on the map. But when you're there in person, there's a sign, I can't remember what, they should have a sign in their window to say, we are part of the community toilet, I hate the word toilet, scheme. So yeah, sorting out both ends for free whilst you're on your day trip or on your holiday. I know, I mean, listen, it might seem stupid to go on about that, but those things matter, don't they? And if you end up having to, you know, buy a cup of tea in a cafe just so you can use their loo, and you end up doing that 2 or 3 times during the course of a day, or if you go to the loo 4 or 5 times, you can end up spending a tenner just for spending a penny. Hang on a tick. Now the other thing, and this is what I do, you do what you do, you do what you want. Wherever I travel, you know, on a train, however far, however short that train trip is, I'm going to have a book with me. And I would suggest, you know, especially if you're traveling with kids as well, book, comic, puzzle books, whatever it is, just in case there's some kind of delay to the transport. You know, having a 3-4 hour delay of a train leaving or something, if you're just sitting there waiting for the delay to end, it's mind-numbingly infuriating. It's such a wind-up, it's so stressful, and bang, there goes the relaxation, which is the whole point of going away. Whereas if you can get your nose stuck in a book or whatever it is you like to do, it might be audio, it might be podcasts, maybe, do you have to download podcasts before you go? I don't know, but maybe download some podcasts before you go, so that if there is a delay or you're halfway, your train breaks down, like when my sister and I were travelling to Nice and our train and a car collided, no one was hurt, I should say, but we were stuck in a field for 2 or 3 hours. On that occasion it was fine because everyone got off the train, sat in the field, had a picnic. We stripped the buffet car of all the wine they had. Everyone just sat about in a field in the late afternoon, early evening sunshine, drinking, chatting and just being French. It was great. But yeah, have something with you so that if you're delayed, if the train breaks down, if the car breaks down, whatever it is, just have something that you can distract yourself with, your kids, your friends, because if you can't do anything about the delay, what's the point about getting irate with it? So you might as well start reading a great book or doing some colouring in or playing puzzles or whatever it is. And that's the other thing with whether it's a day trip or going away for a week. I will because I'm going away for a couple of days, I will take my little day pack with me. So when I go out and about, wherever I'm going, whatever I'm up to, that little day pack will have in it a book, it will have a water bottle, it will have food of some description, so I'll have made some sandwiches, there'll be fruit in it, whatever it is, I'll have made that to take with me. I'll have my homemade wet wipes, which is basically a damp flannel, but I might put something in like a bit of lavender oil or a little bit of tea tree oil into the water that I've swooshed my flannel in. That smell keeps it nice and fresh, but also those, both lavender and tea tree oil, they're kind of antimicrobial. So if you've been wiping your face all day, they should keep the bugs on your flannel at bay as well. So yeah, just an ordinary flannel, but in a little poly bag, a little Ziploc bag, so that then as well, if you go especially if you've gone to the loo somewhere and the sink isn't working well, or you're like, oh, I'm not sure, you've got your own little wet wipe. Of course, you might want hand sanitizer in your bag too. And if you're with kids, this is what happened to us when we were kids. All the kids get their own backpack too. The kids can jolly well carry their own food and water and games and books and whatever. You're never too little to start carrying your own food and water. So yeah, don't forget to take a day pack with you, so that when you are out and about, your hands are free, but you've got a day's worth of food, water, fun in your backpack. Should something untoward happen that means you're stranded and you're bored, and hopefully that won't happen. Yeah, and maybe, and I was thinking about this the other day as well, all these attractions. There are some attractions we can go to which are free, aren't there? But then, and again, especially with kids, although I don't know, I know some grown-ups like this too, as you leave, it's very clever, you leave via the gift shop, and of course kids then are going to mither, aren't they? Can I have this? Can I have that? I mean, here's some budgeting lessons, isn't it? It's like, here's 50p, go for it, get whatever you want. There's going to be nothing they can buy for 50p, poor loves. But maybe think in advance about, even before you go on your trip, somewhere like, and listen, I'm not teaching parenting, I'm not teaching any of you to suck lemons, but even adults need this kind of stuff sometimes. It's maybe going to somewhere like, do you remember when I did the food shopping to give to the food bank at Christmas, and there were the big bags of sweets, but all the sweets were individually wrapped? Just a little handful of those in your backpack, so that if your kids or your partner is getting grumpy, there you go, have a sweetie. Or like a little Werther's if you want to splash out. Just those little moments of distraction. Here, have this. Just little ways to stop ourselves ending up, because that thing of wanting to buy sweets. When you're at these lovely places that we want to visit and have holidays at, or day trips to, if we're at the seaside, you know what it's like? You go into a sweet shop at the seaside, and suddenly, the sweets are all cute, they're all seaside-y kind of things, but they cost a fortune because they're themed for the seaside. Oh, and take a box of this home for you, a little tiny box of Dorset fudge, £79, thank you. Exaggerating a little bit. Or if you've gone to, a fun fair, or any kind of attraction, that when those gift shops, the sweetie shops, everything's ramped up through the ceiling in terms of price. And the thing with kids is, we don't want them to be stuffing their faces with sweets all the time, but they've got to have sweets sometimes. And we have treats as adults, why shouldn't they have the occasional treat? But buy it in advance and have it in your bag to give to them, rather than you look in the gift shop and it's £5.50 for, a little tiny bag of jelly babies or something silly. Anyway, that's my ideas. Have I covered everything? Homemade wet wipes, absolutely. Your own food, your own drinks, finding out where water refill points are, finding out where the community toilet scheme or public lavatories are, find out about the buses, the local buses. Do they have a Rover ticket? Can you get a cheap family ticket? If you buy a ticket for 2 adults and 2 children, if that's your demographic for that day, is it cheaper? Check with the tourist office. Check the tourist office before you even go anywhere near that place that you're going to go to. The main thing is, just allow yourself to have fun. One of the things I love to do, and I'm thinking about this for my little Dorset trip too, is, and it might be a good one if you are used to when you go away spending, I'm really good at browsing shop windows. I love looking at shop windows in different places and markets. I love exploring markets and other places. But you may think, oh yeah, Vivi, I get tempted to buy stuff. How do I stop myself from buying stuff? Well, firstly, you stop yourself from buying stuff if you don't have your wallet on you. If you've got no money on you, you can't buy it, can you? So maybe leave the wallet at home, you know, in your hotel. I don't mean at home in London, that'd be silly. But one of the things I like to do is do photographic safaris where I set myself different subjects or themes. So for example, I might say, right, today whilst I'm out and about, I'm going to collect letters with my camera, so that as I'm walking through a town that's new to me, I don't know, or even a town I do know, and then maybe look at it differently, I'm trying to take photographs of individual letters. I'm trying to get, you know, letters which look modern, letters which are ornate, letters in different colours, different shapes, different sizes, so that yes, I am going through the market and I'm enjoying the market, I'm looking and I'm seeing and I'm experiencing, but I'm also photographing. You could pick a really simple theme of a colour for the day, red. I'm going to photograph red stuff today, so that whilst you're out and about looking, instead of looking to buy, you're looking to photograph instead. But like I said, the easiest way of not spending is don't take money out with you, which also means not taking credit cards out, not just no cash. Or, sorry, that was really slobby. Or you might say, you know, I'm just going to take £5 out with me just in case. Anyway, so there you go. There are some ideas of mine for having cheap, cheerful days out, day trips, holidays. I think it's all about, but you know what the bottom line is it's think outside of the box a little bit more, think about how to have fun without necessarily spending, like a camera safari, but also it's about doing a bit of groundwork, a bit of research in advance, and planning ahead so that you have your food and your water and all that, and you don't end up having to spend, because they really are the fortunes, aren't they, the food, eating out. Anyway, there we go. I am planning when I'm away, there are two things I'm going to treat myself treat myself to. One, obviously I'm going to have a bag of chips on the beach. Of course I can't wait for a bag of chips. Ooh, lovely salt and vinegar. Ooh, lovely steamy chips. Get away, seagull. Ah, ah. That was a peacock. So chips is one, and then the other is, I've got to have a cream tea, haven't I? I'm going to have a cream tea. But otherwise I'm going to be super, super, super frugal. Because it's not about spending on eating out for me. It's not about spending on attractions and buying cheap tat to bring home. For me, the whole thing is about just being right next to the sea and just connecting with those sounds and those smells again. Can't wait. Alright, lovelies, more than that, I can't wait to tell you all about it, either when I get back or you know, if I manage to film anything while I'm down there. For now though, I'm going to say cheerio to you all. Please stay well, stay safe, and have fun planning a little day trip for yourself, even if it's within your own town. Just turn everything off, all your gadgets. You're not available. Go out and have a camera safari. Have a little holiday for a day in your own hood. Alright, lovelies, until the next one, cheerio.